Ever feel like like we're practically playing political chess, but with moves that were like thought up centuries ago? It's wild.
Yeah.
Like how relevant the founding fathers still are.
Fitting.
Especially when you like really dig into their ideas. And you asked for a deep dive on probably one of the most fascinating figures of them all,
Right.
Alexander Hamilton. And specifically, we're talking about his push, his relentless push for a strong, centralized government. And judging by your questions, this is something that you're really curious about.
That's a good one.
Yeah. You really want to understand like the why behind his vision. Like what were the core arguments? What was he up against? How did his personality even shape his strategy?
Right.
So let's dive in.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with personality. Because this wasn't just political theory for Hamilton. This was personal. I mean, this is a guy who went from orphaned immigrant to George Washington's right-hand man.
Wow.
Talk about driven. And that ambition, it really fueled his push for a powerful federal government, one that could actually tackle the enormous challenges that this brand new nation was facing.
Right. And there were challenges. I mean, remember, this is a nation that's just formed.
Right.
They're struggling under the Articles of Confederation.
Yes.
States have all the power. The central government is pretty much toothless. They can't raise taxes effectively. They're struggling to maintain a national defense. Interstate commerce is a mess.
Total mess.
No wonder Hamilton felt this urgency for change.
Oh, yeah. Total chaos. You know, you've got different currencies from state to state. You've got trade wars erupting between them.
Oh, yeah.
It's no wonder that people were just struggling to get by, let alone build a nation.
Yeah.
So that context really helps us to grasp why Hamilton felt that a strong federal government was really the only way forward.
It makes sense.
Yes.
And he lays all these arguments out in the Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
And I have to say, even centuries later, the way he writes, it's so convincing. For example, in Federalist Number 11, he really digs into why. A unified government is absolutely crucial for effective trade and defense, arguing that a common front, whether you're facing down pirates or you're negotiating with foreign powers, it would make the U.S. way more respected and secure.
And this is where his background comes in. You know, he'd seen firsthand during the Revolution how disjointed leadership nearly cost them the war.
Wow.
So a strong central government, in his eyes, was key to preventing those mistakes from happening again.
Makes sense. But of course, not everyone was on board with this idea of handing over that much power to the feds.
Right.
And this is where we get the Hamilton-Jefferson rivalry, a clash of the titans, if there ever was one.
It's true.
Because you've got Hamilton, who's envisioning this nation that's humming along under this powerful federal orchestra. And then you've got Jefferson, who's all about giving the states more autonomy, letting them each play their own tune.
Right. And it's important to remember that this wasn't just philosophical pondering. This was a debate about the very soul of the nation.
Wow.
I mean, remember, the revolution was fought over tyrannical rule, so the fear of a too powerful central government, it was incredibly fresh in everyone's mind.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's kind of like you can feel that tension between those two visions even now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's what makes studying these figures so fascinating, because they weren't just hashing out like policies, they were really wrestling with the DNA of American democracy.
Totally. And for someone like Hamilton, who had seen firsthand the chaos of a weak central government, it's like the answer was clear. But then how do you convince a whole nation of people who are still reeling from tyranny to embrace a powerful federal government?
Right. Well, this is where Hamilton's counter-argument comes in. And it's honestly kind of genius. He says, look, the very system I am proposing, with its separation of powers, its checks and balances, this is the defense against tyranny. It's about diffusing power, not concentrating it.
So he's like turning the argument on its head. He's using the fear of tyranny to advocate for a stronger government.
Exactly. He's saying we can have a powerful government without repeating the mistakes of the past.
Okay.
And to really understand how he planned to put this into practice, we need to look at his time as Treasury Secretary.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because it's one thing to have these ideas, but actually implement them. To navigate that political minefield, it's a whole other story.
For sure. And serving as Treasury Secretary, that's where Hamilton's ideas really took shape. He tackled the new nation's economic woes head on.
I bet.
And his strategy was really revolutionary.
From what I've read, his report on public credit was a big deal. But economics in the 1790s, not my forte.
Yeah.
So can you give us like the layman's version? Why was this report so important?
Absolutely. So picture this. The U.S., after the Revolution, they're saddled with all this debt from fighting for independence. Individual states, they owed money to all sorts of creditors, both domestic and foreign.
Ooh, yeah. That's not good.
It was a mess.
Yeah.
So Hamilton's big idea was that the federal government should assume all the states' debts.
Really?
Yeah, but this was a really controversial idea because some states had already paid off their debts, others hadn't.
Right.
It seemed really unfair to them.
Yeah. Like, why should we rock the boat if we already paid our dues?
Exactly. But Hamilton, he saw the bigger picture by taking on all this debt. The federal government wasn't just bailing out the struggling states, it was consolidating power.
Interesting.
Think about it. Suddenly, creditors, they're no longer looking to individual states for repayment. They're looking at the federal government.
Wow.
It was a huge power shift.
So through this one financial maneuver,
Yeah.
he strengthened the federal government's power.
Exactly. It was a very calculated move with huge consequences. And it really set the stage for his next big move, the establishment of a national bank.
Now, that's the one I've heard about.
Yeah.
Even back then, people had some strong opinions about banks.
Oh, yeah.
So remind us, what was the purpose of the national bank, and why was it so important to Hamilton's vision?
Hamilton saw the bank as this engine for national economic growth.
Yep.
He wanted it to provide a stable currency. Remember the whole multiple state currencies thing?
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to regulate interstate commerce and just generally provide stability and structure to this new U.S. economy.
It sounds like he was trying to create this unified financial system, something that would help to bind the states together.
He understood that economic stability and a strong central government went hand in hand.
Yeah.
But not everyone was thrilled with this idea.
As it always comes back to power.
Yeah.
Right. Who controls the money?
Exactly. And the Constitution didn't exactly give the federal government the power to create a national bank.
Interesting.
And that's where the necessary and proper clause comes in.
The necessary and proper clause. It's amazing how those few words cause endless debate. Even today.
It really is.
It's like we're still arguing about this from the 1790s.
It speaks to how well written the Constitution is, those words. Necessary and proper. They leave a lot of room for interpretation, which is why we're still arguing about them today.
Right. So how did he use this clause to make his case for the bank?
Well, he basically argued that while a national bank wasn't something that was explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, it was necessary to carry out the government's duties, which did include things like collecting taxes, regulating commerce, maintaining a national currency.
So he saw it as being implied, even if it wasn't directly spelled out. That's a bold move.
It was. And, it goes back to his personality. He wasn't afraid to push the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah. And this wasn't just some abstract debate. This had real-world consequences.
Oh, for sure. This shaped the entire financial landscape of the U.S. Imagine if every state still had its own currency today.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine?
What a mess.
The logistical nightmares, the economic inefficiencies.
It'd be
crazy.
It's wild to me that he foresaw these problems back then.
He was ahead of his time.
So, what would you say are the most significant ways that we feel his influence today? Like, what are some things that we might not even realize?
Well, besides the fact that we have a national currency and a centralized banking system, which are both huge legacies of his vision, we also see his influence in how we think about the relationship between the federal government and the states.
Which goes back to the beginning.
Goalie.
It all goes back to that central question.
Exactly.
That was at the heart of all their debates.
And it's still playing out today.
It really is.
Which is fascinating.
It's like these aren't just things we read in history book. This is still relevant.
It's woven into everything. Every political debate that we have, it's all connected.
So by understanding Hamilton, we can understand these current debates on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
It's kind of cool.
It is. It's like you said. It's like having the secret decoder ring.
Well, there you have it. Alexander Hamilton. Brilliant. Ambitious. A little controversial.
A little bit.
But he wasn't afraid to fight for what he believed in. And his ideas are still shaping our world today.
For sure.
We'll be sure to link to some really great biographies and further readings in the show notes, because there's always more to discover. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing. And remember, the best deep dives usually lead to more questions than answers.